Welcome back. It is the Press Box. We are live from the Kampala Serena Hotel, which is the finest hotel for hospitality here in the country. So wherever you are, if you want to jump in for a quick meal, have a quick meeting, the Kampala Serena Hotel is open. And like I always say, they now are delivering the sumptuous meals to your doorstep. So the Kampala Serena Hotel is not just here, it is also right next to you. They can deliver the food as much as you want. Just make those orders, and Uganda's biggest hospitality center will definitely make sure you're well catered for. And of course, DSTV. Yes, live sport is back, and it has been back for a while. You've got the NBA now. You've got so much football. And I tell you what, it's just 11 days, folks. You probably think I'm like 11 days to the return of the English Premier League. The 12th of September, it all kicks off at Craven Cottage with Fulham up against Arsenal. So watch out for that one as well. Mikel Arteta and his Gunners will be up against Scott Parker. What a battle and what a game it should be. In so many ways, a derby in London as well. Now let's come back home and discuss one of the bigger issues. I've got two great guests here in studio. I'll start off with the lady, Juliet Namudu, who is the Director of Education and Social Services at KCCA. And of course, right next to her is Martin Sekaja, who is the Chairman, KCCA Football Club. Juliet, good evening and a warm welcome to the Press Box.
Thank you very much, and good evening to all our viewers. Greetings from the management of KCCA.
Fantastic having you here. This being a sports show, we are going to have a lot of sport because it falls under your docket as well.
It does.
I think let's start here. The COVID-19, it has disrupted everything. Your personal life, what are you going through at the moment?
COVID has come in as a challenge for our families, for our children. I have a candidate for Primary 7 who's finally agreed that she'll be patient until everything is safe for the children to go back to school. But it has affected our sports fraternity as well in KCCA, because our players have to practice from home, they have to train from home. So it's been a challenge, but we thank God that we're alive, because that's very, very important. Nothing can be done without us having our lives.
I mean, in some countries they say sport is religion, but we know life is the most important thing.
It is important to be alive, and then everything else will fall into place eventually.
Okay, big debate coming up tonight, Juliet. We want to talk about the parastatals in this country. KCCA is leading the line in terms of supporting sport in this country. I maybe should ask you first things first. What do you think KCCA's approach has been to sport in this country, and how happy are you for what you're doing at the moment?
Thank you. KCCA has endeavored to make sure that it brings in young people who join our clubs. We have actually 6 clubs. KCCFC, we have basketball, we have volleyball, netball, boxing, and athletics. So we actually, we have over 200 young people in these different clubs. And what does that mean? You have young people off the streets, you have young people going to school, many of them are coming from high schools, many of them are in school. So we are enabling the youth to have their skills and talents promoted, to have them enjoy sport, and to promote our country in that area. But that isn't all. We are also promoting sports in our schools, because like my directorate reads, education and social services. So we are grooming talent right from the young generation, right from the primary schools. So we participate in all the government activities, all the games that are put in place, ball games, athletics. We also have music, dance, and drama, much as that isn't what we're talking about today, but we are promoting talent in KCCA. And we believe that this will go a long way in enabling our youth to be what they want to be eventually.
And I think that's the big debate, what really this means for the authority, what it means for you who is in that seat as well. You have so many kids who should be on these streets are now playing sport. I mean, what does it mean for you as the authority to go out this big and support different sporting activities? I mean, where is your benefit here?
You know, we are parents, we are leaders, and it's our responsibility to make sure that everything that can be done is done by KCCA to enable very many young people be successful. So personally, it gives me great joy when I meet these young people in the different clubs. And while some of them are still going to school, or some of them have been to school, we have graduates in some of these clubs. We have some of them excelling and going out of the country. They're traveling. They're meeting new people. They're getting a bit of an allowance into their pockets. They are in the national teams of this country. what a joy that brings to us as KCCA. So we are determined to make sure that everything that we can do will be done to enable as many young people as possible to share their talent and excel where they do.
Okay, Martin, I'll come to you now, and we're going to discuss KCCA Football Club in detail. You guys are crazy in the transfer window at the moment. You definitely are hoping to wrestle the trophy back from Vipers this season. But as an institutional club, you feel the support of the authority, which is always a big hand compared to the private clubs in the country.
Thank you so much, Andrew. First and foremost, I want to thank government. Because government has been intentional in terms of sports. So the budget that they've been availing has been very helpful in transforming their club to being one of the best clubs in Africa. In fact, this week we saw some of the best clubs in Africa, and KCCA was listed the 55th in terms of digital media. And we're still vying to be the #1. So I very much want to thank government and all other sponsors that have been able to take us this far. So
I haven't had an opportunity of having you on the show, you know, since you took over the reins in Lugogo. I should have asked you what your long-term plan was. I was reading it in the papers. The last top official I hosted was Agre Ashaba here. So maybe I should start by asking you, how has your reign been at the moment?
It has been a reign full of ups and downs. First, we came in at a time when the club was 7th on the table. By the time we ended the league, we were 2nd in position. We were aiming for the first position, but we were cut short by COVID. And I believe that we should have been champions for the 14th time. But we've not yet, this season, the coming season, we've made our intentions clear by the number of signings that we're having. So it has been cut short by COVID, but despite COVID, we do not want to make excuses. We've been trying to improve our brand. We've been growing our fan base. We've been trying to plan, recruit in the various structures of the club, the junior team, the senior team, the coaching staff. So we're strengthening in all aspects. We've been trying to work with various sponsors out there. So we'll be actually having some sponsors. We've extended contracts. So it's been work in progress in the background.
Very shortly, we shall be joining Andrew Mwangusha and Mark Salit join us on this very debate. But Juliet, I want to start here. The talk has always been government is not supporting sport. And like I said in my intro, partly because when Cheptegei goes and wins in Doha, is when most of the folks see government, then officials welcoming him at the airport or taking him for dinner. Do you understand that debate? Because I'm looking at the different clubs that are being supported by KCCA, which is of course under government, and I'm looking at the money you must be pouring in. My very impeccable sources from KCCA are telling me they're spending almost 4 billion shillings a year at the club. And that is how much, well, some of it from sponsors, but that is how much money you're putting in there. Did you understand the debate that maybe government is not supporting sport enough?
We really must appreciate what government does. When you look at what needs to be done, there's a lot that needs to be done. But if the government is trying to promote everything, including sports and talent, then we do appreciate. So from my point of view, yes, we would need a lot more because sports is very expensive, but we are glad with what we receive at the moment. And we do not wait for everything to come from government. We work with partners, different partners, to support the games and to support the young people and to promote sports in our country. So in the few years that we've been here, the 9 years that KCCA has been in place, a lot has happened. We have partners. As I speak now, we have 3 fully fledged all-weather courts built in our schools to support the learners in the schools, in the primary schools, but also to be used as the home grounds for some of our clubs. And what that does is that the young people in the schools are benefiting from those games, from those courts. The players are having a home to stay, and the older players, that is the club members, then support the younger generation by talking to them, by playing with them, and we want to do much more of that. So we would need more money, but we are very glad with what we have, and we use that very well to make sure that we can promote as much of this talent as we possibly can. And we are grateful.
Yeah, Martin, I like her point when it comes to schools. KCCA has been busy in the transfer market. Your 8th signing is a youngster, pretty much still in school. Isn't that what she's talking about? If we have these facilities at these schools, then it's probably easy, not just for KCCA Football Club, for URA, for Vipers to actually pick players who are active in schools. Do you understand where she's coming from? The more facilities at school level, the better sport gets in the country.
Yes, indeed. We've actually been working together and coming up with strategies of how to interest students out there in the younger age categories to maximize their potential and talent. In fact, the 8th signing you're talking about is a senior 5 student who is actually whose course is PEM. So it is a tough course, but he's also finding time to play football. But we do work out a schedule with them. We have an arrangement with a number of these schools. We call them schools of excellence, like Chibuli, Masaka, and other schools. We do work out schedules to ensure that students both meet their individual goals and also goals, their career or professional goals. Yeah, so there's a very strong attachment between sports and education.
Okay, we shall come to that very shortly. We shall also talk about the budget and probably the future of sport in the city. And you, my friend, we have so much to talk about when it comes down to KCCA.
The budget, I know you talked about the KCCA budget. Yes, and I want to add my voice also to my colleague. Government has annually gives us a given budget, perhaps 30%, which goes a long mile in terms of supporting the different activities at the club, including the paying salaries for these youth. And these youth also have so many dependents that they do support in communities. So it is a multiplier effect.
Okay.
So the little money that government puts in is actually a lot in terms of benefiting the society. The rest of the other budget definitely is due to also the collaboration that we do have with other stakeholders, especially sponsors, the willingness from sponsors, and we do want to appreciate them for that. So.
Okay, fantastic stuff. I want to cross over to Mark Sally now. Mark, I'm sure you're loving this debate, my friend. I just received a text message from someone who is at Uganda Police, and they're not happy. I'm telling you, they're not happy that we've hosted only KCCA here today when we're talking about government parastatals, because the police is heavily investing in sport as well in this country. But Mark, when you listen to the discussion from Juliet here in studio, for a man who has been close to coffee, been close to water, been close to umeme, and seen different government parastatals pouring money in sport, do you understand how important it is that we have institutionalized clubs, whether it's the funding, whether it's the fan base, whether it's the facilities?
Of course, I understand quite well, Andrew. I'll tell you that the history of Ugandan sport has been, there's been a great support coming in by the way of the parastatals, government institutions, I'll call them that, that have been there. Personally, I played my football in top flight for direct operation. So you understand where I'm coming from?
Yes.
When I say I understand this, I also played for Posta, by the way. In the Super Mini League in 1992 when we failed to get promotion. But eventually after that, then I played the next 3 seasons at direct operation. So, and before that, when you say that police people are complaining, I'll tell you that the forces, of course, have always been in support of sport. Simba was one of the ones that brought Ugandan football history, for example, but they also participated in so many other sports. That's the army. But police and prisons were always there. And then, of course, you had, I've just talked about direct operation. There were other corporations like UEP and the rest of them, the banks, Bank of Uganda itself and UCB were in there. And then you had, I just talked about Posta, but you also, you had all sorts of institutions, and the latest of which, of course, to join the fray was the Uganda Revenue Authority. Of course, when privatization came about in the early 90s and the space was opened up, and some of these corporations went into private hands, their policies, their sports policies changed, which is why several of them disappeared from the sports scene until you had KCCA left, who you have now. Like I said, URA then came in as the late entrants. But there's always been this support, and it's been the bedrock from which sport has been promoted out of school and into these parastatals, and then the talent was developed that way. When I played for Direct Corporation, for example, we who were football players got onto the payroll of the main institution, and also had a few more perks, including getting a few liters of milk every after training. We would go from Lugogo to the factory and then pick up some stuff from, and then head back to wherever we were. In my case, it was back to the university in Makerere, and it was a good earning for young sportsmen and women, and it quite promoted and elevated a lot of talent, some of which from my club ended up in the national team. Direct Corporation at the time, between 93 and 95, 96, produced up to 7 or 8 national team players, 2 or 3 of whom eventually joined KCCA, if you remember, if you heard of Abdallah Mobiru, who coaches Police incidentally now,
yeah,
and Sam Sempija, guys like that, Patrick Ntege, who also works with FUFA. These are guys who played at Direct Corporation and ended up with the national team and with bigger clubs. But this is how they used to promote there. But when you talk about government support, of course, it goes beyond those parastatals to the commitments which now government is making, which are perhaps bigger than back in the day. The amount of money that they spend on federations, for example, being my connection with NCS, which you know very well now, makes me privy to how much of our funding is coming from government now, as opposed to then when there were a few hundred million to a few billion, up to 25 billion last year, which has only just dropped to 17 this year because of the budget cuts that have come about because of COVID and a few other conditions in the country. But it's a huge budget now that is going into government is sending into the federations to support sport, as opposed to the before. And of course, you know, even at a personal initiative from State House and the President, the support for football, the support for Cheptegei, just before he broke the world record, he and Halim and whoever, getting chartered flights and things like that. Yeah. There's that support that's coming in. There's commitment to building infrastructure. There's commitment to funding national teams. There's commitment to a rewards scheme, which I've talked about here before, that the government intends to reward excelling sportsmen beyond just the 1 year or the one event in which they win Uganda gold medal at international scenes, to perhaps something like the rest of their lives, something which the NCS is trying to streamline now, because it eventually get overwhelming. So there's a stereotype about how government doesn't support sport, yeah. But it's one that is being broken in reality, because they are supporting sport more now in government than they did, say, 10, 15 years ago. But clearly the sports people need even more support. There's so many other things we can go into about, say, equipment and know where government can do more support than they're doing right now. But I think they're on the right track. Government is on the right track as far as support of sport is concerned.
Mark, I want to cross over to Mwangusha shortly. I mean, I do understand what you're saying. There's been a very big debate from different federations and sportsmen and sportswomen suggesting there is no reason government should be levying taxes, for example, on sports facilities that are coming into the country to make sure everyone can get them quite comfortably. But Mwangusha, as I cross over to you, I've seen some of your tweets, and you also have had a view about government support for sport, suggesting maybe it just wasn't enough. When you listen to Juliet and, of course, Martin here, do you get impressed then?
I'll be honest with you, I've been struggling with the network, so I've missed some of what they said. But there was at least one, there was uniformity about them saying they're happy with the government support. I don't know how much their happiness would be if they were not in the positions they're in now, looking from out, but I understand that they're happy in the current situation. So I'll be honest with you, we are happy now because we are coming from a point where we were absolutely hopeless. So we are measuring our happiness from that point whereby you literally beg to get something, which actually you ought to have, for example, national teams. I'll tell you the basketball national team has some international engagements in November. They submitted their budget in November last year, but still no response unless it came in the recent days. So yes, we understand there's COVID and all, but this is something that is coming from far. So yes, we are happy depending on where we are coming from, but we should be quite, ahead.
Yeah.
And we look at it holistically. We're not going to look at it at, say, KCCA and what they are doing as an authority, what they are doing with their clubs. No, we want it to be, something uniform, a sports act that literally addresses things like, facilities. That's where you come in and help clubs and help, the other talented players to come through those, facilities, and then the clubs can take over from that. So
Okay.
yes, given where we are coming from, there's some steps that are being taken, but we need to be far from here.
Yeah. Juliet, as someone who sits on the education and social services desk, really, and I'm not trying to be political on the show today. I'm not trying to put you on a collision course with the president of this country. God forbid, it wouldn't make sense. But do you understand when we say sport is not just leisure? Because we just talked about how many teams you're supporting as KCCA. You just talked about how many children or youngsters, whether from schools, whether from these clubs, actually playing sport, getting an income, going international. It is not just a leisure economy. It is a huge part of the world economy today, sport.
It is indeed. It's also a health. It's a health issue. If people are playing, then they're healthier. So we need to have all-round people, if I may use that. We say that to the young people, the young children, that we want to give you a holistic education, if I can say that. Not only the academics, but what else can you do other than being an academician? So by starting from that point, that means that sports is very, very important in all our lives, in all our young people's lives. It is fun. It is good for you to go out and play ball and socialize with your friends and make, understand each other. But it's also very important for our young people to grow their talents. When you were talking about the different players around the world, how many of them earn so much money compared to some of us who just are academicians, if I may say that. So while it is leisure, while it is fun, it can also bring money into someone's pocket and enable many people behind that person to live a life that is very, very lucrative. So I would really say that we need to promote sport because it's part of us. It's a healthy way to go, but it can also be a very good measure for people to grow themselves financially.
I tell you, one of the most beautiful things I've heard about the support from KCCA, the authority to sport, is the construction of facilities at various schools. Because for me, that means the youngsters get to enjoy these facilities. And when these big players go to these same facilities, they also get inspired. Which brings me to Martin. The support for sport from government does not only stop on the sportsmen and sportswomen. It actually goes to the fans. Because you have hundreds and thousands of fans here in Kampala that throng the Philip Omondi Stadium, for example, down in Ngogo to watch these games. So I think you should tell me about that, but also tell me as KCCA how you're actually keeping in touch with these fans during COVID, because they're not coming in to watch matches. Are you in touch with your fans? They are not happy, but are they excited about their return?
First and foremost, I want to respond to Andrew's question. That depends on which perspective or which side you're seated for you to see government's support. I'm a member of FUFA. And I know that the FUFA funding has increased, courtesy of government, and this FUFA fund actually goes out to several other clubs, not only KCCA. And we are lobbying to ensure that actually we do have a bigger budget to the benefit of the sports fraternity. Coming back to our funds, we do have fund structures, we do have a fund leader, and we do have different segments or sections. We do have leaders across the divisions and across the country. I want again to thank government, because during COVID, government provided some relief to some of the soccer funds, KCCA inclusive. So we are in touch with the funds. What I want to tell you is that they're full of urge and appetite for the return of the game. But given the conditions, we've been having discussions with the various stakeholders in sports to ensure that we do provide entertainment at the comfort of their homes. So we are praying so hard that this pandemic will end so that our lovers for the sport will come back to the stadiums. Talking about the stadium, last season, averagely we're having about 9,000 fans every week that were attending matches, maybe a match between KCCA or other clubs that were using the stadium. And that's why we lobbied government to have a sports infrastructure in place that would accommodate the numbers that were coming in place. And we are happy that government responded.
We shall talk about the infrastructure very shortly, because there's a very huge debate as well on how many sports facilities actually have been given away in and around the country to different investors, which to an economist sounds fine, but to the sports fans is probably something we should be debating. And I'll cross over to Mark very shortly, but before I do that, Juliet, it's not just about the players, like he was saying. It goes down to the communities. The communities actually get transformed just by having these teams get active every single week. I was just looking at statistics from one of your teams, the boxing club at KCCA, winning 3 medals in the National Open in January. This goes to families, this goes to communities. It is proper social change.
Very true. Could you allow me to say something very close to my heart when it comes to clubs? We, about 2 years ago, started promoting parasports. Parasports is for the people with disabilities. And KCCA is now making sure that every year we have a competition that starts from the divisions for all our people with special needs, people with disabilities. They participate from the division level, they come up to the authority level and compete. This comprises both the young people in the communities plus our children in our schools with special needs. And we feel that way we are enabling everybody. It's equality, it's for everyone. It's not only for those who are able, but also for those who may not have the same opportunities or the same abilities like others, but they excel. So indeed, we are proud to be part of the government and everybody else who is trying to promote sports in this city. Yes.
Mark and Mwangusha, I think let me start off with Mwangusha. Are we confused here? Are we looking at both sides of the coin with completely different colors, Mwangusha? On one side, we are talking about the huge budgets that are coming in from government to support sport through different parastatals here in the country. But on the other side, we're also talking about facilities that are being given away, are not just given away. Maybe some are not even being maintained. The last time we were on the show, you talked about the Kacheka Stadium, where 2-3 hours before a game, cows are actually grazing. So isn't it a debate we should be having as well? If government is pouring this money in sport, they should also be working on the facilities.
I think if facilities, it's proven worldwide that where there are facilities, at least people have where to play. I'll give an example of Rwanda Cross. I covered the 2016 CHAN. Just about every province has a stadium or two, and they're not your Old Trafford. I mean, just decent enough stadiums with the right facilities in there, and the local clubs get to use them. Now, I did a tour of stadiums across the country in 2012. Kacheka, Mbarara, I went even to those that are no longer there, like the Gulu, former Gulu Golf Course, Lira, those that are being fought over. And I also went to the Akibua Stadium. At the time they were talking of, this was building up to 2016 elections, and it's in manifestos. Manifestos where they say every region should have a stadium by this time. Now we are heading into another election. It finds its way back into manifestos. So these are things that are in manifestos, but never on the ground. So we are not asking for much, really. What we're asking for is, at least let's have our facilities. You can't claim everywhere there's a facility should be a mall. We are not the most developed, and we have examples of the most developed countries that have stadiums in cities, and they are making money out of that. It doesn't have to be a mall to make money. Max Ali here has had the chance of being at almost every final, Champions League and all. You have London alone. You have Chelsea, you have Spurs, you have Arsenal, you have Fulham. All these have stadiums in there. And still London, I mean, those could have been malls, but guess what? The UK understands that the game is inculcated in people and it's part of culture, and actually it brings in more revenue. So I'm not saying malls are bad, but let stadiums not be avenues for putting up malls. And a stadium can be anywhere for as long as it's worked upon well to meet the targets in terms of the economics of the country and economics of the club. So at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense for us to stand here and say our national stadium is Nambole, which Nambole is also here and there. When you go to Nambole, apart from the enclosure that you see, when you go to Nambole, you'll be amazed. I mean, this was supposed to be old sport facility. The same people who built National Stadium in Tanzania, China built Nambole, but ours was never completed to what it was supposed to be.
Okay.
So Nambole, the structure is there from out, but just like CAF and FIFA the other day proved to you, doesn't meet international standards. So as a country, one stadium, Nachivubo, all I see is stalls around it. I hope one day I wake up and something has propped up in the middle of the stalls. So we need just regional stadium. I mean, it's only the government that has the capacity to put up something in a region. I applaud them. Back home, Buhinga Stadium is up, so that's something to be happy about. But let that be in every region. And then that even fights the concentration of clubs in Kampala to form up the National League. But if you have these facilities elsewhere, you support the people from within, and then we can get different talent from across the country.
Okay, I want to cross over to Mark because I want us to try and hit the home stretch for this one and try and wrap. Mark, you understand that at some point you have to strike a balance in developing countries like us, having a mall that probably is going to employ a great number of folks and probably improve the economy as well. But we must strike a balance, Mark. We must strike a balance. We must keep these facilities. And also we must develop the city. Where does the government step in then? How do we make sure this is sorted?
Yeah, look, Andrew, I'll say this. I'll start by saying two things. One, that we had a very long period.
Mark, just before you go on, I'll remind you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but I also want to remind you that the last time we talked about UNRWA, of course, you said UNRWA was not in charge of a road that actually took AC Villa out of their training base. They can't train from there. So I don't know if it was KCCA football club that was playing politics so that Villa gets out of the city, them being the record champions. But that's what we're talking about.
Andrew, you got that completely wrong, but I don't know if I should go into that.
Okay, tell me.
If you're talking about part of Villa Park, it was acquired so that UNRWA builds what we call the Kampala flyover project.
Yes.
And of course, being in KCCA jurisdiction, KCCA has a role to play there, but UNRWA is actually building that. That's a totally different thing. But anyway, I'll say this, that I was starting by saying there are two things here. We've had a long period of neglect as far as sports facilities are concerned as a country, which we cannot run away from. There was a long period of neglect. And two, we would like to, because I've been involved in sport at all different levels, from being a sportsman and a fan to now being part of different administrations and all, that we would like as a country to see government work faster and also invest more. Because if you see, for example, there's the big example right now of the basketball arena, the state-of-the-art modern basketball arena across the borders down in Kigali. That is going to bring a lot of mileage to that country, both in terms of their sporting prowess as well as the economic value that it brings to the nation in very many different ways that transcend sport and go into tourism and everything else. Those two things I'll say, but I'll also say that over
okay, I think I'm struggling.
Recent times it's been noticed, of course.
Okay.
That listen to me. Can you listen?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go on.
When the current sports minister came in, that is the Honorable Hamison Obua. One of the first things he did was that nationwide tour of sports facilities. And one of the results of that, of course, is the commitment to revamp the stadiums we're talking about. Government has already, of course, committed to start projects. I think Buhinga in Masindi, that is being worked on, and a few others. Yeah, in Fort Portal, sorry, is one of those that were targeted first. But there is a plan, of course, to have back in Mbale or in Bukembe and all over the country, Peche and wherever those facilities done. And of course, there's a recent commitment and a lot of work going into revamping Nambole since FIFA rolled it out of international engagements because of the state it is in right now. And of course, we've talked about the building of the high altitude center in Terriet, however slow that has been going on and things like that. So there's a commitment into building facilities as something that has been prioritized by government now because of the realization that it is necessary. Of course, like I said, we'd like to see more investment. Would like to see government move faster. Personally, one of the things I believe in personally, and I've told the people I work with, both at the National Council of Sports and a few others elsewhere, is that I believe that government should not even, in this modern day and age, should not even carry the entire financial burden of revamping and also establishing new sports facilities in this country. There's so many other ways we can go about it using money from other people, including the investment, the people we give investment licenses that come into this country, including the people, the people that we give the huge infrastructure projects that they build both in the road sector, in the energy sector, in the education sector, and everywhere. We can actually get these people to commit to contributing to the sports facilities of this country if we believe, if we accept and believe that these ones bring the kind of value that all of us in sports understand that they bring to this country. And government, I think, is going to listen, and they're going to be working towards this. But I know that there's a commitment towards revamping of sports facilities. I know we are lagging behind everybody else, but I see a future in which, and not too far from today, in which actually we are up there with the rest of them.
Okay, Mark, I want to, first of all, when you are saying something about investors having a cut that goes to sport, Juliet here was nodding her head. So I'll come to her very shortly for her to give me her view on that and also facilities in the country. And KCCA Football Club is building a new stadium, my friend. So they are going to launch a huge facility that will be down in Lugogo. But before we get that reaction, let me cross over now to Joel Kamadi, because the viewers tonight are joining in as well. Is government supporting sport enough? Part of the debate is that the parastatals are actually investing huge amounts of money in sport, Joel. What is the reaction online?
It's a lot, and I'm loving the deliberations that are going on there. I'm getting messages in my WhatsApp, and this is an interesting one because this is from Johnson Omolo, who says, we want to see KCCA competing at the level of TP Mazembe, Kaizer Chiefs, Al Ahly of Egypt. KCCA should be listed as a company or ask fans to pay membership. You can't rely on KCCA budget of under 2 billion annually. All right, you'll react to that when I get back to you.
Okay.
We have Uganda Fantasy Premier League, who says, in all this UPL talk, I don't hear about the fans being discussed. Clubs should do more on that front. That should be on the menu too. There has to be a plan for it. I'll just quickly go through some others here. If my director can put them up for me. Sir Fabian Paves says, KCCA has always been known for grooming young players for the top flight league, but of recent, they seem to be keen on buying already made and established players. They shouldn't lose their identity, or else Vipers will slowly but surely knock them off their patch. Thanks, many thanks, Sir Fabian Paves. We have another one, Musitwa AH, who says, for as long as the majority of the clubs in the league are parastatals, then the league, the Ugandan league, will always be an amateur league. We need more Vipers to transition to a professional league. Do you have another one?
Joel, I don't know what that means, though. I mean, I don't understand when people say parastatals cannot go professional. I think KCCA is probably the most professional club in Uganda, and I say that openly, and yet it's a parastatal under KCCA, the authority.
I think what he was trying to mean, or what he meant in that submission of his, I think what he was trying to mean was he wanted an equal balance of parastatal teams and also community-based teams to be included in the league. I think that's what he meant. Maybe we have, yes, Tony says, government has not yet done enough to lift the sports sector. It's a high time they realize that this sector can boost the GDP by a reasonable percentage. Maybe I'll do two more and then hand back over to you. Gino Eric says the organization of KCCFC helps nurture talent by helping the children meet their individual goals. I think those who have followed the post-primaries are witnesses to this. Maybe one more. Do we have one more? All right. Baba Mendes says our government has tried to be supportive over the years. Bagezi Zako, in 2019-2020 budget, they allocated 26 billion to sports. Perhaps it must readjust structures and make the sports industry a full ministry of its own as a way of creating more jobs, infrastructure development.
Okay, I do appreciate that. We shall come back for more of that reaction that is currently coming in online. Namudu, let's now talk about the fact that Mark was talking about investors. And you as at KCCA, you probably could do this within your own docket to make sure most of the investors, most of the folks to get licenses here in the city, have a contribution to sport. That makes a lot of sense, isn't it?
It does. And I wanted to share with viewers that the 4 all-weather courts that are in the schools currently, we have 3 already completed and 1 that is going to be started, is not money from KCCA. Okay. The French Embassy and the Uganda Olympics Committee, they partnered with lots of other agencies and came up with these funds. And look what we have. We have 3 all-weather courts, a 4th one coming up. So it's true that we can work with very many other partners in promoting sports in our country. And that's what we have really tried to do in KCCA, to support government, because we are government, by encouraging other people, other players to be a part of the dreams that we have and to enable us achieve more than we could otherwise have done if we were only relying on the funds that we have.
But that old debate which has irritated some of the sports lovers in the country over the years, they have talked about malls coming up where sports fields were. They have talked about roads being constructed where fields were. I mean, is it striking a balance between the other side of economic development and sport? I mean, what is your reaction to that? We've seen a couple of facilities go down. I tell you what, one of the few parts of Kampala that has developed some of the biggest talent is Naguru. And I talked to some of the superstars now that come from Naguru, and they say, well, we can't go back that much because most of the facilities have been taken. Is there corruption, or is it a legitimate move from KCCA, the authority?
I don't think I can be able to answer that, but from my educational point of view, that's why we are protecting every space that we have in the schools, for example. All the government-aided schools that belong to KCCA, we are trying to make sure that we get titles for them. We are going to make sure that we cordon off those play fields, we protect them, because both the learners and the community will then have space to play, will have space to use for everything that they need in terms of sports. Okay. So that's how I want to look at it, that how are we protecting what we have and making sure that we can improve it and it's useful to both the ones in school and the community at large. Okay,
Martin, the biggest story, I'm telling you, when it comes to facilities in the country, is the big news coming out of Lugogo at the moment. KCCA Football Club are looking to construct their own stadium, where the current Philip Omondi stadium is, really to improve that one. First of all, tell us, what is going
on? First and foremost, allow me to draw back to what Mark was sharing in terms of sports facilities. My recommendation to the various maybe city administrators, because now we do have, government has come up with a policy of creating new cities, having Mbale, Masaka, Mbarara, Gulu. So it now is the best time for those various new cities to create infrastructure necessary, because government can put in place, through planning, it can have sports facilities and purpose them for sport. So this is the best time for them to consider sports development in the entire country. And that's our recommendation from FUFA. But coming back to you, developing KCCA Stadium has been an effort of so many players, including the sponsor, Madame Dorothy, the minister, the Lord Mayor, and all leaders. So we are in the process of identifying a contractor. Probably by early September, we shall be evaluating bids for the suitable contractors. We've decided to go bubu. So we want to encourage local investors, people who are in the construction space, but local companies to participate. It will be open and transparent. We shall try as much as possible to get a contractor that has the necessary requirements to construct.
But what's the plan? How big will it be? Do we have these details already?
Yeah, we do have the details. We'll be making a few adjustments because we did have a different plan earlier, because this plan has been there for 5 years, since the days of Chairman Kabugo. So we had to make changes to the plan. And yeah, we are going to phase it out. Okay. So we'll have the VIP phase first and other phases.
Oh, you're starting with our phase.
Basing,
okay.
yes, basing on the funding given. And again, government gave funding for the stadium for the purpose of what? Of sports activities in the city.
Let's stick with KCCA then. One of the busiest clubs in the current transfer window. You're talking about funding. Just take me through those transfers. I mean, what has been the thinking behind Mike to make sure he brings in these many beautiful players, including the last one, like I said, very, very young. 18, you said?
16.
16.
Yeah.
Huge transfer window, huge season ahead for the club.
And actually, that responds to one of the questions raised. Someone was saying KCCA is only buying used players nowadays, but we do still have the structures in place.
There's some truth in it.
We shall be promoting quite a number of youth this season, and we still have our youth team last season was the most exciting team. In fact, it was more exciting than many senior teams. Okay. So going into the season, of course, last season we did have targets that we do feel we did not meet. You know, at every stage, everyone meets the objectives. So we did have quite a number of players who thought maybe they would get greener pasture elsewhere. And we thought that maybe their time had come and we needed to rebuild. So you might find that we are making so many incoming players, recruiting quite a number of players, but we're also having a number of players leaving. Okay. So we have about 9 players that have left, and we very much want to appreciate them for their effort and contribution towards KCCA's achievements. A number of them have contributed to KCCA Sekafa winning team trophy, and also to the domestic dominance in the last 5 years. Okay. So we want to breed another team that is going to help us win or dominate locally for the next 5 years, and also participate competitively at the continent. So we do have 8 signings. Yeah. A number of these players, to someone out there, we do make what we call strategic, we do apply cost benefit. Or because football is a business, it's not just casual, like you were earlier saying. So we do bring in players that we know are going to add value to the club, and also cost effective. Yeah, so a number of them are free agents, but we think they add a lot of value to the club.
There was a rumor on the internet today. Please help us clear it, that Mike Mutebi is going to be fired by KCCA Football Club.
Yeah, that rumor, I've also heard about it, and I've responded to some claims. It is because I think we do not have football activity. We don't have games. People are so much used to watching games. The number of fans was growing locally. So because of that, I think every other gossip that comes up, people are so quick to take it up. But I want to reassure our fans that if it is a marriage, we do have a good marriage with Mike Mutebi.
Okay, fantastic. Namudu, I want to ask you just 2 final questions before we leave. Yes. Max Ali, the gentleman you're saying joining us from home, always has a big debate he comes up with. He says the current generation always retires and they go into oblivion. They're not supported when they become veterans. Either they haven't saved enough, they don't know what their retirement is going to look like. I mean, you're into the education sector at KCCA. What are you telling these players? What are you telling these youngsters? Because they need to know that they're only at the top for maybe 10, 15 years in sport. Is there extra education you're giving to the youngsters out there that you're supporting?
Thank you very much. It's very, very important for the young people to know that they have to balance the 2 activities. They have to go to school, they have to graduate, and then they have to promote their skills that they have in sports, such that like we all say, if God forbid you play for only a few years and then you can't play any longer, you have a fallback position. You have a profession that you studied, that you excelled in, that you passed, and that can be your backup. But secondly, for our youngsters to know that even when they are up there in the limelight, they should be able to save, they should be able to invest, they should be able to think about what will happen to me later in life when I can't play this game anymore. So as an educationist, I encourage them to study. And that is what the clubs do when they visit the schools, and will be doing so much more after COVID-19, is to encourage the young people to study, stay in school, complete school, but also promote their different talents that they have, because who knows? Yeah. Either way, they will excel and thrive in life.
The future of sport under KCCA is on fire, I'm telling you. You must be very excited about it. The folks out there will be hoping for an increment in the budget as well. I'm hoping that's a plan.
Yeah, we are really hoping to grow sports in KCCA from all levels. We were talking with Martin a few weeks ago and saying that we need to grow this talent of sport right from the very young children, from 6-year-olds. Let's see who is very good at what they play, and how can we promote them. So that will mean that going forward, all clubs in the country will have future players that they can tap from and work with. So we're very excited, and we are looking forward to COVID-19 going away and everyone going back into business of sports.
Okay, finally, Martin, new season is coming up. The KCCA fans out there watching the program tonight want to know what is in stock, how excited they should be, what's new at KCCA ahead of the new season. I mean, what is your final message to the KCCA fans out there?
Dear viewers, I know that we do have a very big family out there of KCCA fans. In fact, I've discovered that even most of the owners of these clubs are KCCA fans, almost 100% of them. So we have a huge fan base. So dear fans, I want to assure you that we're going to be competing locally and at the continent. We want to play exciting football because that's a brand that we are known for. We brought in all players. Last season, we did need to reinforce in our attacking. We have quite a number of talent that is going to excite you. So please, I invite you to watch games online if we've not yet reopened the stadiums. And also, I want you to, once we open the stadiums, I'll invite you to come and watch the games again. But most importantly, your life matters to us as KCCA family. So please take care of your life under this pandemic. I urge you to continue following the SOPs. You need to stay safe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Juliet Namudu, the Director of Education and Social Services at KCCA, thank you very much. Such a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having us
tonight. I hope we can have you next time to come and always explain as many points as you can. And of course, Martin as well. Thank you very much for coming and joining us on the show tonight. Brilliant. I hope we shall have you guys in the nearest of times. All right, I want us to go for a quick commercial break now, folks. When we come back, the Community Shield, Arsenal beating Liverpool on penalties as we're just 11 days away from the return of the English Premier League and most of the European leagues. And of course, the transfer window is up and running. It's the Press Box.